Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Jeremy Corbyn confounded his critics in the general election, increasing Labour's share of the vote and securing his position as leader. So will the Corbynistas use the result to strengthen their grip on the party? Our reporter, Emma Vardy, has been finding out.
Okay, here he is, Jeremy Corbyn.
Enjoying superstar status at Glastonbury. Since when did being a politician become this cool?
Do you know, politics is actually about everyday life. It's about all of us, what we dream, what we want, what we achieve, and what we want for everybody else.
I'm staying out for the summer, playing games in the rain. The hills and the fortune won't be the same again. Staying out for the
It's looking like the summer of love for Jeremy Corbyn, as he basks in his post-election glow, well, as much as you can bask in technically losing. So is all that bitter infighting in the party a distant memory, or will it creep back in?
Jeremy will stay Labour leader now as long as he wants to do so. You know, he's come back from the dead in terms of the predictions, and so he will remain Labour leader as long as he wants.
Let us be together and recognise another world is possible if we come together.
Former Corbyn critics like John Mann MP have been eating humble pie.
The big issue for Jeremy now is he going to hold his people in and stop any factional battling in the Labour Party? And there's people on both sides of the old divide in the Labour Party who love nothing better than internal wrangling. Or is he going to consolidate his position, bring the Labour Party together, and be a potential Prime Minister in waiting?
The centrist Labour pressure group Progress, which had been associated with some of Corbyn's harshest critics, says now the party's more united than ever.
In the general election, all wings of the Labour Party worked together. Labour MPs put their strongest foot forward in getting re-elected in their seats. The national campaign pulled through. Party staff worked overtime relentlessly. We have shown that when we pull together, we're a strong force.
Before the election, a number of party rule changes had been up for debate as pro- and anti-Corbyn factions looked for ways to weaken the other side. So has all that now been kicked into the long grass?
Any attempts to try and undermine Tom Watson as deputy leader, appoint a second deputy leader, attack the party staff, change the party rules, will show the public out there that the Labour Party is more interested in itself rather than in their concerns, but will also put at risk that unity that is fragile and, quite frankly, now is led from the top.
The way in which internal hostilities would recommence would be if there was a return to some of the sectarianism that we saw in the last couple of years. So if there are attempts to deselect MPs and councillors, those MPs and councillors are going to fight back against that. They're not just going to roll over. If there are attempts to cross a limited number of policy red lines on things like Trident renewal, again that would cause an internal division. And if there are attempts to change the rule book of the party in a way that just gives blatant partisan advantage, then again it would cause divisions to re-emerge. But there's no need for them to do any of those things. I think on policy and personnel, the ball is in Jeremy Corbyn's court, really.
There will be a debate at conference, though, on what some are calling the McDonnell Amendment, a rule change that would lower the number of nominations needed for future leadership contenders. Those from the left of the party have been accused of plotting to make it easier for a left-wing candidate to stand for leadership to succeed Jeremy Corbyn if he were to retire.
I think that opinion at conference is possibly quite finely balanced on that, because the elections for constituency delegates seem to be on a knife edge between the left and the right. We'll know the outcome of those round about July the 9th when nominations close. And then it really all depends on the attitude taken by a couple of the big unions like the GMB and Unison, who are less enthusiastic about this proposal than Unite and the more left-wing unions are.
Meanwhile, here at the Jeremy Corbyn supporting Momentum HQ, they believe there could be another general election within 6 months and are remaining in full campaign mode.
We're going to be targeting new marginals. We're going to be training thousands of activists in those marginal constituencies. We're going to be developing new technological platforms to make it easy for people to get involved in the election.
Safe to say, they're feeling rather vindicated.
Many of those who are bitterly opposed to Jeremy Corbyn have eaten their words, have apologised.
Do you really trust them?
Look, we in the general election campaign campaigned for all Labour candidates in our target seats, in our marginal seats, irrespective of where they stood in the past on Jeremy Corbyn. We helped win seats for candidates who supported progress just as hard as we helped win seats for candidates who had always supported Jeremy, and that's the way we're going to carry on.
And how long can that last?
Well, I think it will last to the next election because we all want to win the next election.
For now, he's the man of the moment. But is this performance the peak of his popularity or the precursor to Labour winning power?
Emma Vardy reporting.
Well, we're joined now by one of his closest allies in the Shadow Cabinet, the Shadow Attorney General Shami Chakrabarti. Hello, thanks very much for being with us. Well, we've all seen those pretty remarkable scenes at Glastonbury Festival with Jeremy Corbyn's name being chanted by tens of thousands of people. He's had a lot of criticism this year, though, hasn't he, including from people in his own party. So what would you say now to those Labour detractors who simply weren't convinced by him?
I would say that during this remarkable election campaign, the Labour Party, the Labour movement pulled together. It united, yes, around a leader, but Jeremy would be the first person to say, with both his feet firmly on the ground, that it united around a manifesto that was built on Labour values. And that's what's really working, and that's what's resonating with people, including those enthusiasts down at Glastonbury.
I can see why Labour feel kind of a bit glowing at the moment, but do you think there's a risk about getting a bit carried away with the situation? I think we can have a look now, hopefully, at something that you said last week. Not that, which is Sophy Ridge on Sunday. If anyone won that election, it was Jeremy Corbyn. I mean, that's not right, is it?
Well, that was out of context. It was in a bigger exchange, very heated exchange on question time. So what I would say, if I could have a longer passage, was that Jeremy was a remarkable campaigner, and he took on a lot of abuse, and he kept calm, and he got past it. But it was the manifesto that was the ultimate star of that campaign. But he still lost the election, didn't he? He didn't win. Well, we didn't get the most seats, and we're not in a position to form a majority government. But if you look at where we started, and if you look at the odds that were stacked against us, it was possibly the greatest reversal of fortune since 1945. And we're now in a place to move forward, I think. And that's what I would say. But say that calmly, with both feet firmly on the ground. There's a lot more to do.
I'm keen to talk to you as well about fire safety, the story that's obviously dominated since that appalling tragedy in Grenfell. And so far, every single piece of cladding tested from local authorities, that's 34 buildings in total, have failed those tests. I mean, what needs to happen now?
Well, it's incredibly alarming. And I know that there will be people all over the country that are really worried about their own buildings, not just tower blocks, but other buildings too. What I will say is that I hope that people who for years were denigrating this concept of health and safety alongside human rights and other things will now think again about that, and will think about austerity, and will think about deregulation, and realise that these aren't just sort of convenient policies and sound bites. They put people's lives at risk. So what we need to do now is to carry on with the testing. Obviously, the government needs to do more to make sure that local authorities have the emergency money that they need now to house people, so we don't have the situation that perhaps we had in Camden, where you have to get people out. There's no question you have to get people out when the fire service tell you to, but there is sufficient emergency funding for people to be housed in the short term and the medium term. And going forward, we need more social housing in this country. We're promising to build 1 million new homes, many of those in the affordable rental sector and in social housing. That's what we need to do.
You were talking there about austerity, but you can't just blame the Conservative Party's austerity, can you? Because if you look at Camden, for example, where people were evacuated from their houses, that cladding was put up in 2006, so that was the last Labour government.
I'm not going to play party politics with public safety, but what I will say is that whatever party you're in and however you voted, whatever you've thought in the past about things like austerity, in particular things like health and safety is incredibly important, and we mustn't cut corners.
So do you think Labour, the last Labour administration, perhaps got it wrong then with health and safety?
Well, to be fair, it wasn't a Labour government that was saying we should scrap health and safety legislation. It was a great sort of Conservative mantra for many years, alongside scrapping human rights and other things. But I hope going forward we can do this in a relatively cross-party way, because there were people, including in Parliament of all parties, expressing concerns about fire safety over many years, and now their voices need to be heard.
Talking about cross-party allegiances, there's a kind of movement to build a cross-party consensus on Brexit as well. We've got the Queen's Speech vote next week. Lots of amendments we're expecting to be added to that, but we know that the Lib Dems are going to be calling for the UK not to be brought out of the single market. How do you feel about that? Do you think that the UK should leave the single market?
We've been really clear. I know that it hasn't always come across that way, and there's spin and there's reporting and so on, but it's the second of our Brexit tests that any conclusion to negotiations must involve Britain having access to the single market, tariff-free access.
I'm going to stop you there, because I do understand that you're saying you want tariff-free access to the single market, but Labour is also saying that you want to have control over free movement of people. I mean, that sounds a bit Boris Johnson. We haven't said we'll have control of free movement of people. You can't necessarily have complete control. What we want is to be able to have fair migration that avoids people's jobs being undercut. Well, in the Labour manifesto, you said that free movement of people would end.
Well, no. Okay, so let me try and clarify this. When you leave the European Union, formally, there is no longer free movement under the treaty.
Well, you can stay in the single market and have free movement if you take the Norway model, though, couldn't you?
No, but you have to negotiate that, and it may not be called staying in the free market and having free movement. It may be called something else, but what it's called doesn't matter. What's important is that jobs come first, the economy comes first, and that means getting tariff-free access to the single market, and then the formalities we will negotiate.
The thing is, though, let's get real here. You want to form, the next government. At some point, you're going to have to decide whether you want to prioritise immigration or it is the economy.
The economy comes first.
For you, the economy comes first.
Yes.
So, in other words, you're happy to sacrifice more control over immigration to protect jobs.
I think the entire Shadow Cabinet have been absolutely clear. This has to be a jobs first, economy first Brexit, and everything else has to be negotiated with that priority in mind.
So something similar to free movement of people, just under a different name, could happen?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of room for negotiation about what types of free movement, what kind of priority. It's possible for friendly countries in and outside Europe to give priority to certain nationals. We did it for many years with the Commonwealth. We have looser visa regimes with some countries compared to others. So there's a lot of room for manoeuvre, but the priority is clear. It's the jobs and it's the economy first.
Interesting. Now, just to end, in the election, Labour swept most of London. Where you didn't perhaps do so well was in 4 seats that have been described by the Jewish Chronicle as the sort of Jewish firewall for Labour. So 4 seats with big Jewish populations that didn't swing to Labour in the same manner that many of their neighbouring seats did. Do you think that concern over your anti-Semitism reports and anti-Semitism in the Labour Party might have actually been the one thing that stopped Theresa May, that allowed Theresa May to get a majority of sorts?
I don't know, but I want to be clear, and I was actually clear in my report. We've had some problems. and we have tried to address those and look at ourselves in the mirror, and perhaps there's more work to do to get that across to a community that has been really concerned about rising anti-Semitism, not just in politics, not just in Britain, but all over Europe. And if there's more reaching out to be done, if there's more assurance to be given, I think that has to happen.
OK, Baroness Chakrabarty, thank you very much for coming on the show today.
Thank you.